Market recap for Thursday, January 11th. We are almost through the trading week. We've got one more day to go, which I think will be interesting in terms of how this week finishes. But really quickly, we'll go through some of the themes of the day and some of the movers, some of the names that I thought stood out today. What was interesting, a couple names that saw option activity, and I will call them in the unusual nature. We'll feature that as well. Risk disclaimer in front of you. Everything that we're going through is for information purpose only. Thank you for joining the live stream, coming live from downtown New York City. So risk disclaimer in front of you. Everything that we're going through is for information purposes only. Let's see. So let's start with the CPI report, right? Why don't we? So many different things going on today. First of all, I need to bring up this CPI report, right? Coming in a little bit higher than expected, but I'll tell you, I'm not a CPI analyst, right? When this number comes in, a little bit higher than expected, month over month, 0.3 versus 0.2. Ex food and energy came in right in line with expectations. So number one, like this is an increase in inflation, right? Inflation, we hoped would stay around like 0.1, versus 0. And this is not just market related too, but this is just overall. It really hurts people, to see things continue to increase in prices. So it's just 1 month of data, and there's so many different things that go into this report, right? So of course, like you could look at it and you could break it down, right? When we look at the different components of the inflation report, you can kind of see which core services make up a big portion of it. There's some things that are still declining a little bit, and then don't forget tomorrow we have the PPI report. But the one thing that I would note is that it's just 1 month. We've seen a couple of these reports come in flattish. So really we want to watch to see if this is going to be a continued trend where inflation is starting to tick up again, or if it's just one of these months where maybe there's some seasonality and as well that's showing an uptick. So as we get more reports, we'll know, right? And then of course, why is this so important? Why is there's so much attention on what these monthly CPI reports are? I talked about how the CPI report was a big on the day of the CPI report, the S&P on average last year, not today, really rallied pretty decently. No, we don't know if that's the case this year, but again, why is that important? Because everybody's wondering what the Fed is going to do. Now, I find it interesting that we're talking about what's going to happen in March, because this January 31st meeting is going to be most likely a non-event, right? They're not going to raise, they're not going to cut either, but everybody's starting to, really talk about March. There's so much that could happen between now and March. But right now, there's a 72% chance that that's the market, right? This is Fed Fund futures and what the Fed Fund futures are pricing in. So, people actually trade Fed Fund futures, right? It is something that you can trade, believe it or not. And there's a 72% chance that is what is being priced in. I think that's a little bit optimistic in terms of a rate cut, but I also don't have really a great feel for what we're going to see for the next 2 months, right? I mean, we're sitting here, it's the 11th of January. We're talking about something that's 2 months away. I can't tell you what's going to happen next week. I can't tell you what's going to happen tomorrow in the market. So it's really tough to say whether or not they're going to do that. I think most of these Fed speakers say, hey, well, we have to see more data. I would agree with them. If I was sitting in their seat, I would be saying the same thing. I wouldn't want to be cutting interest rates if we get another CPI report that says plus 0.2, plus 0.3. However, we get another couple months after this where the inflation report comes in exactly flat, then okay, maybe they're onto something, and maybe they can cut interest rates in March, but you don't know what other economic data points are. One thing I've noticed that is a little bit different is that we are starting to hear more and more about there's different companies that are starting to lay off different groups within their company. It's, for the most part, it doesn't seem like there's mass layoffs in companies. It's just, hey, we're going to trim this section of our company or this group of our company. So I don't know if anybody else is noticing that too, Or is that one of these companies where they're announcing, layoffs in this division or in that section of their company? So in any event, I'll move away from the economic reports. Once we get the PPI report, which is tomorrow. By the way, I will be out tomorrow, so no, you will not see any notes from me or anything. I'll be on an airplane for a good portion of the day. Hopefully, they have good Wi-Fi and good secure doors and everything else too. But so we'll have retail sales, but I think really what's going to be in play soon is we're going to start shifting our focus more to earnings reports, right? We're going to get the banks tomorrow, BlackRock, also UNH reports tomorrow, right? And then things are really going to pick up next week with earnings reports and for the next couple of weeks. So I think that's going to be interesting. So maybe we shift a little bit from more micro to macro. Let's talk about the price action today. I was impressed. I'm always impressed with the indicator that we use because it's so accurate in terms of telling you where there's support and resistance at different zones. I'm getting a lot of questions about that. People are noticing that I'm posting some trading view charts with the market webs. Yes, it's something that we look to roll out, and there will be a monthly fee that we're going to charge for it. Probably in the neighborhood of $40 or $50 a month to get access to the market webs. And I've been using this for a long time. I use it in all my charts just because the thing, and I think for most people who are using the market webs, you'll find that they're just so accurate. Right. So look at the S&P, for example. Like look at where we kind of get where we found support. Right at a 5-minute value area. So when I'm on the 5-minute chart, which gives us the value area for the day, and of course you could see very closely the price action for the day, right? You could see the value area, which is based on yesterday's price activity, but it really comes into play. Look at how we rallied to the top of value and we didn't want to overcome that. Today it was a nice bounce, and I mean, look at that to a cent basically. We came in and we clipped this thing, right, and took it out. So very impressive. I think also, what's notable is when you look at the Qs, right, and really what we talked about in our pre-market section, which is on ttgtrading.substack.com, talked about that this could be an area of resistance. Now we don't know for sure, right? Just like if we look at SPY yesterday, right? We actually, this is kind of back and forth. We actually went past it, right? We were able to do that, but we really didn't get too far, right? And notice how today unfolded, right? And I'll talk more about the Qs in just a second. But when we did come down on the lows of the day, I was thinking, hey, we could drop to this 471. We didn't even get there. So we made a little bit of a higher low. So, that selling pressure that was pretty aggressive there for a couple hours really didn't go too far today. And you could begin to kind of look at things like what the VIX was doing. Like the VIX still didn't get very high. It didn't get over 13, like 50 today. So that's also, indicating that, these volatility and these sell programs are a little bit short-lived currently, right? For now, everything is for now, of course, because things could always change. And then here's the Qs, which I said I would come back to. Yeah, I mean, we perfectly took out that virgin point of control. I didn't think that was a good sign that we did this prior to the CPI report. Like we were rallying into that. And also note the other thing to note. So sorry, let me finish my thought as I get ahead of myself sometimes. But so we took this out, and same thing, right? We really started to see a clear rejection from there. But it's just impressive, right? That there's buyers that are coming back in and for various different reasons. But I won't get into all of that here too because the video will be too long. I'll talk forever. But notice that the bounce took place here, right? And also notice that we didn't get back up here. One other thing to note too in this chart is notice, we're not even like as powerful as this move has been in some stocks this week. Your cyber stocks, your software stocks, your internet stocks, right? Those magnificent 7 stocks, right? As powerful as some of the moves have been this week, we're not above the December 23 highs. So we've kind of returned. So far, this is a little bit of a lower high. So that's also something to keep an eye on. Again, it doesn't mean like we're going to crash or something like that. It's just a little bit of these little technical points that you want to pay attention to. right, is that we did not get through those highs. It could be just be one more day, right? You just kind of have to take things with, you can't make a decision and be like, oh my God, well, we didn't take out, the December highs, so that means game over. It just means you really want to pay attention, right? To see like, is that going to be a technical issue? We don't know yet. Right. And then finally, just to kind of finish the index review, IWM did come back from the lows, but it's still just not doing the same thing, right? We go back to what the Qs look like, for example, right? Really nice bounce right in here, and got above the moving averages on Monday and have had some nice follow through. But look at just the difference in IWM. It's not doing it. Now it didn't break down either, right? And I'll show you a level two, but notice that we're still and that's why I use the moving averages here, is because we've got a very big value area for the month and we're kind of just locked inside here, right? And then of course when we look at the value area for the week, right, on the 1 hour chart, right, we did get to this. We fell right down aggressively because I think IWM was down about like 1.7% today on the lows, but notice it held where it needed to. Now, I didn't go long that because I just don't expect too much out of this. Like, okay, that's a great. If you played for a bounce, that means you got to sell the bounce because you're not really getting much change in trend. We're just not breaking up, right? Because this was leading, by the way, this morning. Small caps were leading going into the CPI report, right? And then lagging, right? So, I mean, it gives you a good, I guess, trading opportunity for scalping purposes, but that's all that the IWM has been doing this week, is just giving you an opportunity for scalping, making a little bit of money, I guess, back and forth. I mentioned, I would talk about some different areas. The home builders were the best. So I always look at the this column to tell me, besides the overall performance for the day, but I want to know what was bought, right? What did people go after for the day? And also what did people sell? What were the weakest areas of the market? The home builders went up the most from the open, right? So ITB, wasn't the best performer for the day, but it wasn't the best performer for the day, but it did go up the most since the open. Remember, it was down a little bit on KBH's earnings, and but recovered nicely. So there's buyers in that group, right? They're taking advantage of lower prices. By the way, one other thing to note here on this upper box is that the microcaps were the bigger underperformer today, down 1.2%. As you can see, it's in red for you. The cyber stocks, I mean, these things have been like the Energizer Bunny this week, right? I mean, really strong. Also saw buying today, but finished up 1.1%. Chinese internet names did well. Finally, China had a positive day in their local in the local indices. So that's a nice change there. Although, I think right now just a bounce. Software also did well today, almost finished up 1%. So again, there's a lot of similar themes that we're seeing right now with the cyber names, as well as a little bit of the semis. We'll talk about a couple of those names really quickly, and then we'll go from there. So yeah, let me start talking about a couple different names. So this video is not crazy long today, but again, Nvidia acted pretty well, right? Another new high for Nvidia. It didn't close exactly on the highs of the session, and we'll see if this ends up being some type of toppy looking candle. But for now, adding up another, carving out another up 1%, right? And at this point, we're getting a bit extended, right, in the short term, right? And that's something that we talked about. This is how I trade. This is how I traded today. Not everything was perfect, but I mentioned, this morning. Notice, like, I give a lot of audio updates, based on what the market is doing. But I had said, at 950, I was like, there's a lot of stuff up. I saw like Google up 2%. I saw a lot of strength in those Magnificent Seven names. And I said with my portfolio, like, I'm selling it to strength. I said, in my opinion, we're short-term extended in the growth stuff. And literally, we started to come down after that. And myself in my trading, I wish I was more aggressive. I was taking targets and things, but I wasn't taking off, full positions. But yeah, this is extended a bit. So again, it doesn't mean that the trend is done. It just means we're probably at this point in need of a little bit of consolidation. But that's been super strong. Another name that we wrote about in the beginning of the month was Marvell. This saw some more call activity, nice little cute little consolidation on this Virgin point of control, and really impressive. It hung up pretty well today. It was up 3.8%, right? It's also finally like it's breaking that value area for the year. So even if you didn't get long today, you could get long as long as you've got a stop right around 63 bucks, right? That's the significant area that I'm watching. Also in this group, Broadcom was very strong as well, right? Broadcom, it's kind of an interest. It's been acting interesting the last couple of days because it sells off a little bit, but these little beginning of the day sell-offs have been giving some good opportunities rather than chasing, on the open. You can actually buy the dip a little bit in Broadcom. Right. And, nice continues to make the turn, not as aggressive as some of the other turns that we've seen, but Broadcom went up a lot, right? And is retaking those short-term moving averages. I'm going to move on to, of course, the cyberspace. CrowdStrike up again, up another 1%. Again, short-term extended, right? So you just have to be reasonable with some of these things. Sometimes people think, oh my God, it's going to go up every day, right? I think that, after 3-4 days, right, the market's about probabilities, right? No one knows for sure. But I would think that there's a good chance that we're probably due for some consolidation in the cyber names. I like Zscaler. I did, even though I think that the cyber group is a bit extended, because I have been substituting in and out of some names. Zscaler is a name that looks really good here. If it just can continue above the value area. So again, I went long here because I know exactly where my trade, where I'm going to get out of the trade, right? If it breaks back into the value area, like maybe breaks this 5-period moving average, then I won't mess with it. Probably needs more time to consolidate. But for now, I'm going to try it. Right. And it's trying to resolve itself higher out of this little consolidation this week. All right. And then of course, if I didn't mention Palo Alto too, but I mean, that's another one that's been, straight up. Oh, VRNS, that's the other one, right? That not too many people know about this name, but it's quietly, I like the names personally that not everybody is talking about, right? And the ones that also, they don't have to see option activity, right? Some people are kind of nutty with some of this stuff, and I get it. They're selling services. Like I do that too, but I'm going to be honest with people, unlike other people. You don't need to see option activity in names, right? People always, oh my God, well, it's so great when you see option activity. No, it's not. When half the trades don't work, right? They just don't. The people who are selling these things, right, who are selling you on option flow because that's what they specialize in, it means that of course, they're going to tell you that you need to see option flow in a name. You don't. Because again, a lot of the times when I see option flow in a name, right, it drags and it underperforms for whatever reason, right? It doesn't mean that the people who are buying those options, that doesn't mean that they're going to be right, right? They're usually right 50% of the time, right? Some of them are not good traders, right? So it doesn't matter how aggressive the option is bought. It doesn't mean that the person behind the screen who's buying that option knows anything. Because if not, their hedge fund should be up higher than why are the hedge funds trailing so much? Those are the ones who are buying the option activity. You have to keep that in mind. So this is a name that has done very well. And I think it's headed towards that Virgin point of control. See, every once in a while, you do get one of my rants. Another couple other names. Now, it doesn't mean that I'm not going to ignore option activity, right? It's a great indicate, like if something wasn't on your radar, which I'm going to talk about a name in just a second. VRT also is a name that I know a lot of people watch that's trying to break its value area as well. Another name too that I featured on one of our write-ups is CNO. Now, I don't know if this name goes right away. I just like what's happening here on this weekly chart, right? Basing and trying to break higher, may have a bullish engulf here, but I think you might need patience with this one. All right. But yes, I don't completely ignore option activity. I just don't think I'm not going to sell people on the fact that you need to know that there was flow in a name. It's absolutely ridiculous. Um, so DH. So this is a good example, right? I saw some calls in this name. I don't know this name, right? They are a software name in the healthcare space, right? So that might be something interesting, and from time to time, people poke around and maybe there are situations where the option buyers do know something. It's just not always the case. But this is a company that like I said, a software company, healthcare commercial intelligence solutions such as healthcare analysts. So again, it's less than $10, speculative. And I think if you have an alert on this, maybe watch to see if it can break 953. Right. But interesting, and who knows, like anything under $20, right, is a little bit speculative. And maybe there's somebody, who's interested, who's a bigger company, who's, interested in this name as a takeout. Right. So in any event, I thought that was good. The other one that I think has been interesting is the CYTK, right? CYTK did see a big call spread. A big call spread. There was an announcement today that Novartis is not interested in the company, right? That news came out a couple days ago that they were. Well, they came out today and said that they're not. Notice that this thing really got hit hard, down 16%, but it was down like over 20%. But it held that top of value, 74.52. All right, really, interesting. And that's right around the lows is where you saw a call buyer come in. And I think they went out to, I think it was May, that they positioned themselves in. Maybe someone else is interested in the company, and it did rebound from the lows. All right. A few other names that I have. Well, I think that's it. The builders were also. I mentioned that the builders. Right. Here's what the ITB looks like. All right, this is also making some progress here. I continue to be long Pulte, right? Pulte did make a new closing high today, right? I've just been sitting with this position, haven't really done anything, but just kind of letting it work for me. Another name that I like in this group is Builder, but not showing as much relative strength. All right, and just to kind of go through a couple other observations, this is my midday note. Again, you can find this at TTG Trading. .substack.com. More new highs versus new lows. So we do, and I've kind of been hinting at this the last few days, is that the breadth in the market has not been particularly good. So that's sometimes a warning signal, right? When you're starting to see more things go down versus go up. Well, first of all, we know that's a harder trading environment, but also, and you can kind of see this graphically in a minute, but this is the first day I think this year where we've seen more new 4-week lows than new highs, and various different groups. Previously, I've been looking at the new lows, and it's been involved in a couple different groups, but it's pretty widespread, right? And this is what this looks like too. Right. When you look at this, so this information comes from Bloomberg, of course, but the blue is the new lows, right? And the orange is the new highs. And you could see that the blue is starting to pick up a little bit. Like I said, this was the biggest day that we've seen. So again, one day isn't a trend, but you're starting to see some more warning signals kind of flash up. So be mindful of that. What I tend to do is really, I always have an emphasis on risk management, but I begin to kind of think more and more about that. And, I do, what I did today was just I took off more positions today. I didn't do it all the way at the beginning of the day, right? You could see I mentioned my trading blotter earlier, and mentioning that I was a seller early on in things like Nvidia. I took a target. Microsoft, I took a target. Uber, I took a target. I actually took this Uber position off, right? And then I began to kind of unwind a little bit, right? I took off a couple other positions, CAMT. I took my final target in CrowdStrike. Now I might be back in CrowdStrike, but for now, my average price is 243 from, I think a couple months ago, and I got out of this at 282. And I tried Marvell. I just didn't want to put on another position today with the market moving around, so I took it right off. But I might look to re-enter it. All right, I got out of a couple other things, Gap as well. So again, I'm taking what the market is, trying to listen to what the market is telling me and making adjustments, right? Instead of a whole bunch of swing trades on, right? Now I can kind of remove some of that, right? Still, always unless something really bad is going on in the market, I'm always going to have some positions on, but it's a difference between holding a lot of positions or this many, right? And right now I'm moving it towards that, right? And taking off some positions, just not being super greedy. I've had a really good week. I'm positive for the month. I'm outperforming the indices. So I'm happy where I'm at right now. And we're going to have a lot more things to kind of talk about with earnings season. You can find more about my positions and what I'm holding if you go to this ttgtrading.substack.com, and you can sign up. There's a free 7-day trial for the well, the lights went out for the paid version, so you can check it out there. Guys, have a great night. See you tomorrow. Oh, I won't see you tomorrow because I'll be out, but have a great